When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that gives the gift of spooky. I'm your haunted host, Jennifer. I'm your resident medium and a teller of ghost stories. Tonight, dear listener, I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to do a best of ghost story episode for you. Stories of haunted prisons, phone calls from the dead, haunted beds are some of the stories that I have for you this evening. And before we get to the spooky, I thought I would do something new. I'm going to read some of the latest reviews that someone was kind enough to leave for the podcast. This is from Blossom213 on Apple Podcasts. She writes, I love the warmth and integrity that Jennifer brings to every reading and episode. You can feel her care through the mic. I've always been obsessed with the paranormal spiritual world, and now more so since suddenly losing my younger sister in 2014. I also love that Jennifer works pagan elements into her pods. Thank you, Blossom, for taking the time to leave a kind review. My heart goes out to you about the loss of your sister. I am so sorry to hear about your loss. Thanks again for leaving such a kind review. Take care. This review comes from Mrs. Gans, 2008. She writes, I was introduced to Jennifer through My Victorian Nightmare as she did a reading for Genevieve. I was instantly hooked. I love her attitude, her gentle and kind approach, and her authenticity. I found this podcast and I have been binging ever since. Thank you, Miss Gans, for your kind words. I have another from Karen Sanders that says, I really enjoy this podcast, but the episodes are way too short. I want them to be so much longer. I can appreciate that. I really do. I wish my content could be longer, but I am a one-woman show and I do all of the recording, the editing, putting together the sound design. And of course, I have to make time for my readings as well. It is a goal of mine to offer more in the future. I'll just have to see how I get there. Again, thank you for the kind words. And if you, as a listener, would like to leave me a review or a comment, Spotify and Apple Podcasts or YouTube are great avenues to do so. I really appreciate the support, and it moves that spooky algorithm along to help others discover the show as well. Okay, let's get to the spooky. The ghost stories begin right now. Three years ago, I got a job in a pub in my local town. The pub is situated next to the town's police station because before it became a pub, it was part of the town's prison. This building had a bar and restaurant downstairs and a series of flats upstairs. I worked in this place for just under a year, and while I was there, I started dating a guy that lived there. His parents owned the pub. He mentioned on his first night there, he slept upstairs in what was then to become the living room. He said, in the middle of the night, he was shaken awake and heard a voice say, "Go home. This is our place." Once he had officially moved into a bedroom, He said that room had so many experiences, such as the door slamming, rapping on the walls, and other strange noises, that he didn't feel comfortable in there and moved into a bedroom next door to that. When I first spent the night there, I was quite excited and also a bit nervous. I didn't hear anything that first night, but I did notice the atmosphere in the pub changed during the early hours in the morning. The atmosphere became almost oppressive and gave me the impression I was being watched. About 4 months later, I had worked a shift in the pub and it was late at night. The pub was closed and the only people there were the landlords and myself. We sat at the bar chatting, and I heard the door to the men's restroom open. I had my back to the door and it was about 10 feet behind me. I then heard someone walk across the wooden floor, and I heard the sound of keys jangling. As I turned around to look, no one was there, and I asked my boss, "Who else is in the pub?" He joked that I must have been hearing things, but the noise I heard, especially with the keys, was so loud that I was puzzled why only I had heard it. Another time, I was in my boyfriend's room, and he said that the room felt eerie that night, and he was sure something was going to happen. We didn't have the TV on, and we had just paused the music. From the middle of his bedroom, I heard a very loud growl. Later that night, we both went downstairs to get some crisps. The cellar of the pub was locked, and we had to walk past it to get to the small kitchen for a snack. We heard a noise behind the cellar door. We both looked at each other puzzled, grabbed our snacks, and started to walk back upstairs. About 3 steps up, we heard a huge thud at the cellar door and then knocking. We ran up the stairs quickly at that, too frightened to open the door and take a look. The weirdest experience I had was when the boyfriend's parents had gone on holiday and had asked me to stay at the pub for that week and keep the flat upstairs safe. I had just finished a shift. I decided to phone my boyfriend just as I was opening the door to the flat to ask him what he wanted for dinner. He answered the phone and we spoke for about 2 minutes, but I couldn't seem to turn the lock in the door. I told him that I couldn't get into the flat, and he laughed at me and said, "Maybe the ghosts don't want you there." As soon as he said that, the phone signal went bizarre. We both heard about 20 other voices, all speaking at once, none of which were understandable, and some which sounded very panicked. I then managed to turn the key in the lock and open the door, and the voices on our call stopped. Let's just say the hour I sat in that flat alone, waiting for him to come home, was rather unsettling. I asked the owners if they had ever considered holding a paranormal night there, but they refused, saying that they had to live there and would simply rather not know. I had been lucky in my life to know my great-grandparents. This story is from 2011 when my great-grandmother passed away. Her service was held in a funeral home not far from where I lived in the city. My mom, dad, and sister drove up for the funeral from the small town we're all from originally and picked me up on their way. I've always had encounters with the paranormal, and I find funeral homes particularly busy places where spirits may see that we are more open in our grief or our closeness to the other side, having just lost a loved one. The funeral service was held in the main room of the home, with the casket in the front of the room, beautifully laid out with flowers. I went and put flowers on the casket with my sister before the service started. The service was held, and then we moved next door to the adjoining room for tea. There were around 30 people at the service in total, and the vast majority were my family members and some extended family that I had met when I was young. Despite the sadness of the day, it was nice to meet some of my very distant cousins who were the same age as me. During the tea service, I needed to use the restroom. The bathroom was located at the front of the building, which involved walking back through the first room the service had been held in. I was fine on the way as I followed another lady, but once I stepped out again, I realized I was entirely alone in a large room with the casket. I looked over at it, and I was surprised to see there was a man standing there with his head bowed, paying his respects. This man had an otherworldly type of haze around him, and his suit just wasn't quite the right color, as if he was faded. He was a very tall man, and no one at the service I had seen was quite his height. I stared for a moment, but then I felt like I was intruding, and I hurried back to my immediate family in the reception area. My great-grandmother had been married 3 times in her life, and while my great-grandfather had died quite young, her second husband had always been described to me as a tall man. He too had died before I was born. I wasn't scared. My great-grandmother's last visitor didn't acknowledge me at all, but I feel like there must have been a reason I was able to see him that day. This story was related to me by my friend Sarah. Sarah lives in a rural part of New England and is therefore used to dealing with the various effects of winter storms, including power outages and the temporary loss of phone service. One winter, after a particularly severe storm, the phone in her house was out for several days. Then, the phone started ringing again, at all hours of the day and night, at least 5 or 6 times a day. However, when someone picked it up, all they could hear was static and what sounded like the howling wind, and what everyone in the family described as a distinct scratching noise. More annoyingly still, they couldn't make outgoing calls at all. They couldn't even get a dial tone. After a few days of lost sleep and frustration, Sarah left the cozy glow of the television to go to the neighbors and call the phone company. She explained her problem and told them her address, to which the surprised operator replied that she couldn't possibly be getting any phone calls at all, even faulty connections. The phone lines connecting to her house had been completely severed by a fallen branch, and workers had not yet had time to repair them. In fact, only yesterday they had cleaned up the broken lines out in the cemetery. Sarah's parents had the phone company send someone out to check on the lines, just to make sure. The service provider claimed that there was nothing wrong with the wiring or the phone itself, and there was no malfunction that could be causing the phone to ring since the outside lines were severed. Sarah's family was left with the unsettling conclusion that the down phone lines in the cemetery were causing the phone calls. This year, when you're at another boring holiday gathering, make sure to turn to the person next to you and ask, "Hey, do you know any good ghost stories?" And then share the I Talk to Ghosts podcast with them. No more awkward silences trying to figure out what to say, what to talk about. Talk about ghosts. Talk about spirit readings. Share the I Talk to Ghosts podcast. Thank you and happy spooky holidays. This happened to me about 6 years ago, but I'll never forget a single detail. I was staying with my aunt during my studies in London. My aunt was a kind lady in her 50s and living in a 2-bedroom house. She showed me to my room, and I remember thinking how cozy it was, with its small bed, a desk perfect for studying, a chair for reading, and a charming cupboard for all my clothes. The first night I was sleeping in bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard an old woman softly crying. Her small, sickly voice was saying, How could I sleep on her while she was in so much pain? I was terrified and couldn't explain what it was I was hearing. I spent the rest of the night sleeping in my room's chair. The next morning, my aunt asked me how I slept in the new space. I didn't tell her what had happened. I was trying to convince myself it had all been a strange nightmare. I was very uncomfortable with the idea of sleeping in that bed, but I had no choice. Nights went by, and if I was woken up by this strange, sad voice, I moved to the chair until morning. After a few months, a friend of my aunt came to visit us. He was telling me how he had took my aunt to a charity shop run by a hospice, and this is where they found the nearly new bed for my current bedroom. I was shocked to hear the origins of this bed. Still, not knowing this man and not wanting to look irrational, I kept my suspicions to myself. And that night, I gave the bed a deep cleaning. The base of the bed had 3 drawers underneath it. I opened one drawer, and I found numerous cards and gift papers inside. I took them out, and I was shocked to find out they were condolence cards for an old lady who had died after a long illness. Some of the cards had messages for her children, and there were notes about her maladies written by hospice nurses. Emotionally saturated by my find, I told my aunt everything and handed her the bundle of cards. I confessed the details of my sleeplessness due to this old woman's crying, how she always woke me up and would moan about her pain. The next day, my aunt threw out the bed and bought me a brand new one. We got rid of everything belonging to that bed, and I, with all my heart, wish the spirit of this lady to find peace. Wherever she is, I hope she's finally pain-free. This happened a long time ago in my teenage years. My 2 best friends wanted to have a slumber party. We invited some of our other friends, 8 of us in total. After dinner, we went down to the basement where my friend's parents fixed up the rec room to accommodate all of us with mats and sleeping bags. Someone had the idea to try a Ouija board session. Apparently, one of the girls who lived next door happened to have a board, so she ran home really quick to get it. About this time, I gave them all a great big nope, not me. I told my friends about a session my sister and cousins had a couple years before, and instead of being scared, they were extremely intrigued and even more excited to give it a try. They called me a chicken for not wanting to play, but I didn't care. I went home and went to bed. The next day, the doorbell rang. It was my best friend, looking very pale and wide-eyed. She looked at me seriously and told me what happened after I left. They were asking silly questions like who was going to marry whom, but then they asked questions they shouldn't have. Who were they talking to? How did they die? Could they prove that this was all real? They began receiving knocks in response to their questions. Originally, my friend thought it was her older brother playing a prank, but after trying to catch him in the act and scare him in return, they discovered he was in the living room with the rest of the family, watching TV. More intrigued than ever, the girls decided to keep talking to the board. At that point, they started getting unnerving answers and hearing strange noises. My friends got scared and quit the session. They decided to call it a night and all climbed into their sleeping bags. That's when things really started. She told me that the room got incredibly cold and there were strange noises they couldn't explain or locate. Then they began to hear something shuffling around them, walking and pacing, but they couldn't see anything. A couple of the girls yelped after being poked by unseen fingers. They were so scared they began to make a commotion that alarmed her mother to the point she ran down to the basement to find out what was going on. When they told her mom what they did, she was angry at them for bringing a Ouija board into the home. She made the girl take the board back to her place and get it out of her house. Things quieted down after that. But needless to say, they didn't get much sleep that night. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of Spooky Ghost Stories. I hope you've enjoyed this best of collection. Let me know if you have a favorite, and of course, share it with friends, especially if they would find that odd during the holiday season. But wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.
So you want to start a business. You might think you need a team of people and fancy tech skills, but you don't. You just need GoDaddy Aero. I'm Walton Goggins, and as an actor, I'm an expert in looking like I know what I'm doing. GoDaddy Aero uses AI to create everything you need to grow a business. It'll make you a unique logo. It'll create a custom website. It'll write social posts for you and even set you up with a social media calendar. Get started at GoDaddy.com/Aero. That's GoDaddy.com/AIRO.
Something's coming. Do you hear it? Can you see it? Trundling across the common, following the old hollow ways, sauntering down the lane, rocking up into the market square, laying out its wares. It reels you in with mysteries, trades with you fantastic tales, spins for you fascinating stories. Stories like the haunted pound stretcher, flying saucers, poisoners and body snatchers, haunted woodland, and the secret tunnels beneath our feet. Weird in the Wade is on its way, a podcast that explores everything that is weird, wonderful, and a little off-kilter in the town of Biggleswade in Bedfordshire. If you like your spooky stories told with a dash of historical context, or you like your history with a pinch of the paranormal, then this is the podcast for you. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to Weird in the Wade wherever you're listening now.